There's no such thing as a dark day here on MSG Plus, although Saratoga quiet on this Tuesday with 16 full cards down. We are off and running in a big way, blazing speed from the starting gate on this latest edition of the National Racing Report. Richard Migliore, Andy Serling, Jason Blewitt vying outside. What a Whitney weekend. We've got a lot to talk about.
Yeah, Saratoga delivers.
Boy, is it delivered in a big way this meet. I mean, it's just been one day after another. It's like Groundhog Day.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously the weather plays such a big role up here because the racing can be and often is very, very good. Mm-hmm. You need the weather to cooperate. It's cooperated. The horses have cooperated. The racing has been sensational.
We thank the fans. We thank the horses. And just think, I mean, we're not even at the halfway point. In fact, full steam ahead to day number 20. Maybe we'll talk about some stakes upcoming on the show, including the Arlington Million at the end. But we've got 11 that were run this past week and weekend, kicking off, and none more important, of course, than Saturday's 88 Whitney, Field of 9. I'll send it to you guys off the break. And, guys, this was not a race that disappointed.
No, it was an incredibly interesting and great, and really great race. Liam's map, they had a plan. They said, we are taking no prisoners. We are going to the top. A little bit of the not how fast you're going, but how you're going fast. He made them all chase him. Chasers all wilted. The closers came at the end. Liam's map lost Richie, but he was the hero of the race in many ways.
Gosh, he ran too good to lose. He did all the dirty work. He set out fast fractions. He's a racehorse. I mean, he didn't even let up for one step, and he got caught by an extremely good horse.
Who got an extremely good ride,
really
and
did.
You saw good horses, good trainers, Todd Pletcher, Shug McGay, Clement with Tonalist as well, who ran well to be third. He just lost to a couple horses that ran better in here, but the rides were perfect. Mike Smith doesn't get in the way. We've talked about this for years. He doesn't get in the way of a good horse. And Javier Castellano, Jason, what can you say about his ride?
You could say this was a perfect ride from a guy that is leading in all relevant categories at this point of the season. He's got 33 graded stakes wins, over $15 million in purse money won for 2015. And a decisive move here where I would have to think for most riders, maybe even Javier, 9 times out of 10, your natural instinct would be to take Honor Code out into the clear. He decided against it in a split second, and that was the winning move.
Well, and it was. I mean, he barely got up, but cutting the corner here, making his way through a big field. And I asked him about this, after the race, and he's like, he's so far back, you don't feel like you can give up that kind of ground and get there, so you have to take chances and be alert. Boy, was he alert.
No question about it, but he is a horse that circled fields in his wins, and really all of his races, but he showed the ability to cut that corner and keep his rally going. I don't think that Liam's map lost this race because of the momentary blip when Mike Smith hit him once and the horse kind of bobbled a little bit. It was imperceptible. I think that he continued to run on. Did you feel the same way, Richard?
I did. I really don't think that it was a factor at all. I mean, he ran, and he ran hard. And even here, and I know some people then were saying, well, he didn't go to the whip anymore. Maybe he should have. I've heard that. This horse is running all out. His ears are pinned. He's giving 120%, and that's when you've got to trust in the rider, and you got a Hall of Fame rider that knows what he feels underneath him.
Yeah, and it was, of course, the day before Mike Smith's 50th birthday. Ran into him actually Saturday night, and he's kind of beating himself up. And I said, geez, Mike, you gave the horse an absolutely perfect ride. He ran a sensational race. You lost to clearly one of the best horses in the country. You have nothing to feel bad about. It was a winning performance where you just happened to get nailed at the wire.
And that's it. But any time for a rider, the smaller the margin of defeat, the more second guessing you're going to do. It's just your nature. You're going to beat yourself up and think, how could have I made that 6 or 7 or 8 inches difference?
Well, I tell you, in this race, I think, and feel free to disagree, had he slowed it up a little bit and allowed the others to be right on him, I don't think this horse is as game as he was. I think the ability to run freely in front, no matter how fast he was going, energized him.
Well, you said it right at the start. Mike Smith does that so well. He allows horses to do what they're comfortable doing, run freely. This, to me, was like him riding Holy Bull.
Yeah,
Letting him just do his thing.
Right, and this was, in a way, a coming-out party for Liam's map, who had basically... was basically unbeaten going into this race, had done most of his winning so effortlessly. This was the first time he was in against real-deal Grade 1 horses, and they've got to be bowled over. And all reports as of now, both he and Honor Code and Tonalist have come out in good shape.
Yeah, well, this was a heavyweight battle, and it delivered. It was a great race, and everybody's still talking about it, and that's what Saratoga's all about, and that's what good horses are all about.
How many times do we have a race that, like this, was billed as, 7 Grade 1 winners, deepest Whitney, and it did deliver. How many times does that actually happen? Usually it doesn't live up to the hype.
It seems to happen in Saratoga.
Yeah, but it seems this meet it's happening every day.
I agree, but I agree with what you're saying.
All right, so for Shug McGahee, heck of a job with he and his crew getting Honor Code, who's needed some time between his races, having him at his best on a day he needed it the most. We'll see if they go to the Jockey Club Gold Cup next. You would think that would be the spot. We could talk about this entire Whitney race throughout the entire show, but we got to move on to the other Grade 1 here on Saturday, the Longines Test, a long-standing classic for 3-year-old fillies at Saratoga. And I walked away from this race saying, you know what, cavorting is just better than these horses.
Yeah, I you know what, Jay? I think that says it all. There's really nothing more to say about it. She just dominated this group. It's a very good horse, legitimized that win in the Jersey Girl. I don't know. Is this a horse that's going to end up being good enough to be a factor in the Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Turf? I think I'm Filly Mare Sprint. I think it's entirely possible. It'll be interesting to see if there's a temptation to come back in 3 weeks in the Ballerina. I doubt they do it, but Richie, I don't think it's impossible.
Well, I'm also wondering if they might not stretch her out now again. Try it. You know, it seemed like Kieran is under the belief that she will go further. Her 2 poor races going a mile. One was in the slop. One was in Florida where she wasn't doing good, he said at the time. And she's kind of a big, rangy filly that you would think actually will get more ground. So it's interesting. Will they try, like what you said, keep her
or the
short?
Cotillion.
Yeah, maybe the Cotillion be on the radar. How about the New York bred, Bar of Gold? She ran a big race, kicked on for home like she was going to win it.
I agree. And she ran a winning race. She just lost to a horse that was better than her. And I agree. And it's nice to see Bar of Gold get the clean trip because she had been eliminated at the start because of By the Moon and the Acorn. And while she wasn't as good as Carolina, who also had that trouble at the start, she arguably might have been second best that day if allowed to run. Turned out she didn't want to go long. She turned back, and John Kimmel got her back to the race. She's a very, very good horse in finishing second here. The other thing about, just quickly on cavorting, if she runs the Cotillion, if she doesn't want to go far, it sets her up perfectly to turn back to the Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Sprint. So actually the Cotillion will probably work perfectly for her.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see if she can stretch out. Will they go down that path? Because you know she's good sprinting.
Well, I'll tell you something. Doesn't it feel like a year where the 3-year-old fillies are starting to come along a little bit? There's Beholder.
Sure.
And if Beholder continues to run like she is in California and she keeps it together, she's a prohibitive favorite, you'd have to think at this point in the distaff. But if not, it's wide open. These 3-year-old fillies, a lot of them have a chance.
Yeah, we'll see what Wedding Toast is doing. She has suddenly gone MIA off that Win Belmont day in the Grade 1 Ogden Phipps. And let's give, there's Artie Magnuson and a good
Nice to
team.
see him here.
No question.
Yeah.
And a heck of a team behind the scenes, if you will, with trainer Keir McLaughlin. And how about Barbara Banke? It was something Mig and I touched upon on Saturday's Insider. She's the widow of Jess Jackson, the late, great Jess Jackson. A lot of families we've seen over the years. You know, the patriarch dies, they disperse the stock. She stayed in the game, and she's a huge player, and she's had a heck of a summer up here.
Oh, they increased her interest in racing, buying farms, and doing more stuff. And a person I was lucky enough to have on the radio show, and it's just she does a terrific job, and they really enjoy the racing, and that's what it's all about.
You can see how flush with excitement she is when her horses run, and especially down in the winner's circle.
And one thing I want to point out about this race, there's a look at the track as times, especially the 7-furlong race. There's a chance that the real time is closer to 1:21 4/5.
All right, fair enough. We'll talk about the return, the Saratoga return of Palace Malice, and maybe a coming out party of Bay of Plenty, and of course the green turf at Saratoga. Come back. The Spa, 7/8. That was the start, the shoot anyway, right off Nelson Avenue. The start of Saratoga's Grade 1 Longines Test here on Saturday. We'll find a bit more about the 2-year-olds regarding the middle portion of this meet with the Toyota Saratoga Special and the Adirondack, 2 long-standing races with a lot of history and prestige. In fact, we'll wrap up this show with a look back at some of the babies that have won here over the last few days.
I think we saw some good 2-year-olds over this weekend. We saw one in California, and we saw a couple here.
Yeah, sit tight for Constellation and a colt by Uncle Mo out on the West Coast. But for now, we get back to the action. Sunday's stake race. We had one. It wasn't a graded stake, but a graded quality field with a couple of Grade 1 winners in the mix. The $100,000 Alydar. Palace Malice was making his first start since last year's Whitney.
Yeah, Palace Malice took a lot of money. I don't think he ran horribly in finishing 4th in here, but he's not the horse he once was. They can move on towards the Woodward, but I just don't see it happening, Richie.
Well, you know, it just depends on how much he needed this race. I mean, it was a mile and a furlong off of, 1/6 furlong after,
And another issue, another stop.
Another issue. So I'm not going to give up on him just yet. You may be right, but I need to see another one. Bay of Plenty, once again, a rider letting the horse be happy, just letting him bowl along, get comfortable. These were legitimate fractions, but he finished the deal. Interesting, too, my loot out of the break from post 11, he had to take up a bit. It actually wound up being a blessing in disguise because he got the defense even though he was last early.
That's a good point, but he took up because the 10 Dream Saturday broke out into him, and Dream Saturday was supposed to be in front. He's actually faster than Bay of Plenty, or certainly as fast. And with him not being involved in the pace, it's a perfect situation of what you like to say, Richie, of not how fast you're going, but how you're going fast, because they were going quickly, but he was just cruising along in cruise control. Had Dream Saturday been in his flank, with all due respect, you would have seen a very different result here.
Well, yeah, because the horse doesn't get as comfortable. They don't breathe as freely. They kind of get a little panicky when they've got that pressure. But I think Dream Saturday, because of the post and veering out the way he did, it just changed the whole complexion. Sure. By the time a rider has to correct him, you've already gotten beat to the punch. That
by the horse, the rail.
Gone. Exactly. He's got the rail, and he's got the lead, and it's over.
I just want to say one more thing about Palace Malice. We'd all love to see him come back and do well.
Sure.
Todd Pletcher had said to you, he was liked very much the way he was doing.
Yeah.
The clockers loved the way he had been working out, and he still didn't run. To me, that signifies a horse that's happy in the morning, but he's just not happy in the racetrack.
Yeah, but 5-6 wide around the second turn, off a layoff.
He never even made a move.
And you're talking about a Belmont Met Mile winner,
Yeah.
who's even his other wins, very impressive lifetime resume, who has set the bar so high. He was a shell of himself in this race. He really was.
Yeah, I'm not saying that if it was
and
any
I get
other
what you
horse,
guys
I
are
wouldn't
saying.
say you give him one race off a layoff. But listen, they want to try the Woodward, fine. But I'm going to be shocked. And I'd love to see him win. I think we all
I'm a fan. I love
but
Palace
I just
Malice.
don't see it happening.
Yeah, no, I definitely understand what you guys are saying. I guess I'm maybe my
fanboy.
Yeah, well, that's it.
all right.
I mean, I really like North, so I'm hoping that he can come back to that.
Well, it was good to have Cott Campbell in attendance here. Dogwood Stable still going strong, and maybe a rematch in the Woodward between Palace Malice and Bay of Plenty. On to Jimmy Toner and Johnny V, two long-standing Saratoga veterans who combined for a win at 3-1. They were second choice in Saturday's facing Tipton de la Rose.
I tell you what, I think we show that Daring Cathy does not want to sit off other horses. She needs to be in the front end. The public, and I liked Recepta too, but I was shocked how short she was. Great ride by John Velasquez and an easy win. The Inquiry, she didn't really come in at the other horse, and she was an easy winner of this race for sure.
No, if anything, the second place finisher stepped out into her, and he steadied, and I think just caused his own problems, really, or her own problems, I should say. But Recepta, beautiful ride by Johnny. He's riding with such a calm, and you can kind of see he's seeing a race so well. He's been really fun to watch up here.
No, I agree. He's been riding very well. He's on the right horses and doing the right things, and that's, I guess, what being a rider's about. Jimmy Toner's got a couple of nice turf fillies in his barn. The Sprinter we saw, as well as this one.
Thieves Guild, I think, the Medaglia d'Oro 4-year-old who's gotten good in one of the minor stakes sprinting on the turf, and he's got both bases, both angles covered. He's got Recepta, who can stay, and he's got Thieves Guild, who I doubt we've seen the best yet of at this point.
She's a very good filly. It's a turf sprinter. Very, very good. We've seen some terrific turf sprinting performances. We'll see one later in the show, but Recepta's okay.
Recepta's okay, and Jimmy Toner is terrific. He's just, an old-school horseman who does a great job, and always happy when I see him.
Yeah, we saw Johnny V getting a leg back up, had to survive a jockey's objection in the de la Rose. All clear there, not guilty, and we'll move on to race number 10 on the jam-packed Whitney Day card. It was the mile and a half, 12 furlong, 12th running of the facing Tipton Weah. We'll pick it up in progress as they enter the far turn for the final time. Danza Cavallo, Mig, talked about as much as the winner in this race, if not more. Goldie S. Pony with the ride.
It's beyond me how Irad Ortiz took this much hold of this horse for as long a time as he took, and the fractions were glacial, and it was just a fight that there was no way a horse can win running like that.
She beat one horse, Richie. She beat a horse who was virtually ease, nice number. Whether she was going to win or lose, I think at a certain point you can't keep doing that with a horse, and it looks bad.
Well, you can't win that way.
Right.
There's just no way you can win a race that way. So put your hands down. If she goes on, she's probably going to clear off, and then she's going to settle. And if you look at the complete polar opposite of that was the winner, Goldie Esponi. Kendrick Carmouche is just cantering on the lead, quiet, long, relaxed hold. You knew it was over going into the second turn, and when he asked her, she sprinted home. How are you supposed to beat a horse that comes home going a mile and a half and 22 and change?
No, I mean, the second, third, and fourth finishers all ran very well in here to get their positions because they came from well back. I have no idea what was going on with Dan Cavallo, but at a certain point, it just feels like you have to think about what you're doing here. And you watched the whole race, and we just didn't show it. It did not look good.
It didn't look good. But then Irad rebounds, and he had won the test earlier in the day. Rebounds off that questionable ride late in the Whitney card and won 4 races here on Sunday afternoon and enters day number 16, tied with Johnny V at 22 wins apiece.
Irad's a terrific rider. Does a lot of things right.
He's a really good rider. If he has one Achilles heel right now, is he'll tend to do that in different situations, take too much hold. And I'm wondering, Andy, do you think it was because he was aware that it was another Chad Brown horse, even though they weren't coupled, in front of him, so he was trying not to engage her? I mean, I'm just trying to...
I think that's a very, very real question. It's an honest question, and I don't know the answer, but it's certainly one that's fair to ask.
Yeah.
All right, she'll live the fight another day. We'll see where Goldie S. Pony goes next. Another talented turf filly or mare in the barn of trainer Chad Brown, who's got all his bases covered regarding olders and 3-year-olds. But let's move on to Saturday's Lure. We'll finish off the handful of Whitney undercard stakes with the third running, named for one of my favorite horses of all time, the Mighty Lure. Major early scratch of Vijack. This was supposed to be the Saratoga coronation, in my mind, of Reload, who I walked away saying, you know what, off his 2015 debut, thought he was a Breeders' Cup Mile kind of horse. I'm wrong. I was very disappointed here Saturday.
Obviously, Shug McGay felt that he had legitimate excuses. There have been some foot issues, I guess, with him coming out of the last race, but his last race was a sign. It wasn't an aberration. He just is a talented horse that's had some issues, whatever they are, and he's just not as good as he could have been, and he had no excuse whatsoever.
No, he had no excuse. He was very comfortable making the pace. But he was very washy, too, and that tells you sometimes maybe a horse just isn't as happy as you would, normally like to see. Because I'm with Jay. When he won at Belmont that day, I was like, wow, what kind of horse is this? And we haven't seen that again.
And, you have to keep in mind, that race was off a year-plus layoff, right. So obviously something happened between the time. And unfortunately, he is a very talented horse, but they have issues, and whatever they are has to contribute to it. Because the good Reload, he was going to win this race under the conditions he was in. He's just not the good Reload here, but Under Control ran very well, and this is one we talk about Irad. Last time he was in, and he lost to Charming Kitten, he was down on the inside. While he saved ground, Charming Kitten got first jump on him with a good trip, but moving 3 wide, and Under Control couldn't make up the ground. This time it was a fairer trip, and he ran him down.
And look at the disparity in prices. He was better than 5-1, Charming Kitten's 2-1, and, I think we had even pointed that out. Different trips. And that's what turf racing's about, trips.
Right. I'm kicking myself because I picked Reload. I should have picked the winner.
Right. You were
second,
complaining after the race, but you did give in the pre-race crowd, you gave Under Control a big pop and said he will prove best in the rematch against Charming Kitten. We'll see who goes where out of Saturday's Lure Stakes as we congratulate the 2015 Hall of Fame class. Chris Antley, King Leatherberry, Extra Heat, Lava Man, a real blue-collar, humble class, and congratulations. And the traditional Hall of Fame Day feature was the 3-year-old turf stake, the National Museum of Racing Hall of Fame Takeover Target. Got an excellent ride from Irad Ortiz.
I think you're going to agree, Richie, that Irad won this race to start. This horse broke very sharply, and he put him in position to get the perfect trip that he got, and then he was able to wheel him out in the stretch and get it done.
And that's it. He got his position going forward, and he was saving ground, and he had a beautiful pocket trip, and then he was alert enough to recognize when he needed to get out of the pocket, and he had horse. And I like this horse, Takeover Target. I'm glad that he got this victory. He's deserving of a graded stake.
I agree with you completely. You look at this race, he actually gained a couple of lengths in the last 5/16ths of a mile. Well, they came home in 28.47, so he came home plenty close to 28 flat for the last 5/16ths of a mile. That's like a 6 and a 22. He was rolling.
Yeah, he was rolling. And how about a lot? I thought he ran really well. A horse that I wonder how far he actually wants to go, but he ran a winning race. He just got beat by a better horse with a terrific ride.
No, I completely agree with all that. I think Courtier for Bill Mott, who finished second and third here, he hadn't run since down in January at Gulfstream.
January 24th.
Yeah, and he comes back with that kind of performance. I mean, the Saranac is going to come a very good race late at the meet, and Courtier is one I think you're going to hear from going forward.
He'll improve off this race for Bill Mott, who in recent times has had a stranglehold on the Hall of Fame stakes here at Saratoga. And these 3-year-old turf horses are pretty good. I'm not announcing them Kitten's Joy or Audie Schiller. They're pretty solid, though.
No, and they're putting on good shows. These are good races, man. This is what it's all about.
Great races. When you see so much of the field within a few lengths of each other, it's just competitive and it's good.
Right, and they're talented horses. You say they aren't the greatest horses of all time, but they're good horses.
All right, we'll talk about a good sprinter who Tom Albertrani, dirt, turf, it doesn't matter. New dimension here earlier in the week, rating for Ready for Ryan, a fast-paced quick call. We'll break it down. We'll head out to Del Mar. A lot more coming your way. Back to Saratoga Racecourse, a new week. In fact, the fourth week kicks off this coming Wednesday. First race post of 1 p.m. We will ring in the card with our traditional Wednesday opener, the steeplechase race. And looking ahead of the weekend, the 4-star Dave is now in the spot the sword dancer used to be. That'll be run Travers Day for $1 million.
Yeah, I look forward to the 4-star Dave and the turf milers. We'll see how the New York bred is able to do in there. King Creasa, as well as some other names, but not Wise Dan.
It would be nice for a New York bred to win the 4-star Dave, him being a New York bred.
No
and King Creasa is in great form.
I almost won it 2 years ago at the expense of Wise Dan.
Yeah, really tested Wise Dan right down to the wire. Mig, real fast, how about 4-star Dave? Quick memories that were in Saratoga, and his namesake is the feature this weekend.
He was just so charismatic, the horse. He'd hear a camera shutter, and he'd stop, and he'd pose. And being his rider up here was fun, because you'd go out to dinner, and all people wanted to ask you about was 4-star Dave. He made me look good.
7 years in a row he won up here. Amazing horse.
Sultan of Saratoga. Let's move on. Race number 9 earlier in the week on August 6th was the 6th running, of the quick call, $100,000 pot. Fast pace in this race. Holy cow.
Yeah, and it's nice these names. You talk about 4-star Dave, quick call. The horse who loves Saratoga, trainer Sidney Waters. They were flying up front, Richie. 20 4/5.
You don't see fractions like that around here on the flat. You'll see that coming down the hill at Santa Anita. 20 4, 43 3. Ready for Rye is such a neat horse. He's got the ability to run on turf. He's got the ability to run on dirt. He can go to the lead. He can come from off the pace. He's basically a trainer and a jockey's dream.
And he feels like a major contender going forward to that Breeders' Cup's turf sprint because he's really found a home. And the fact that, as you pointed out, Jason, he was able to rate, worked in his favor. I think the Great War ran very well. He was right in the teeth of that early pace also, and he was able to split horses. But to me, even though there's some closers and you want to talk about another horse, I would want horses that were close to the pace. I think they ran the best race, the 1-2 finishers.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that for sure. The Great War, he was battling it out. Those are torrid fractions. You don't see that very often. The horse that are the closers that I think had a trip was Cyclogenesis. He just didn't ever really get a comfortable place to run until maybe 30 yards from the finish line, and then he really finished with run. Sometimes you'll see a horse, they're in trouble, but they don't have run when they do find it. You could see he exploded when he finally got a seam, and I think he's the horse out of the closers that had the trip.
And he also is coming out of running at Ascot just 7 weeks ago, so there's every reason to expect he can move forward, much like the Great War, who hadn't run since February at Turfway Park, Jay.
Right, for a cold barn at the meet in Wesley Ward, this might be the highlight so far for an excellent trainer whose lifetime achievements in the game speak for themselves, and picking up cheap horses at auction that have gone on to do some pretty nice things like Judy the Beauty, but I would expect the Great War to improve, and maybe he's a horse that'll eventually stretch out on the dirt, because this Breeders' Cup Juvenile was a good effort.
No question about it. They scratched out of the Amsterdam to run in here. I think he's going in the King's Bishop. There's no reason he shouldn't. His Breeders' Cup Juvenile was very, very good.
Yeah.
And you wonder if Ready for Rye, would they go back to dirt and take a shot in the King's Bishop? Because otherwise, what are they going to do, run in the Turf Monster down at Parks, maybe?
Yeah, and he's shown that he can win on dirt, too. I mean, he's pretty good, although sometimes when a horse finds his niche on the turf,
stay in the surface.
They don't, it doesn't translate back. Mm-hmm. And quickly, just quick call, we bring him up. He's still alive. I saw him about a month ago at Wallkill Correctional Facility. He's part of the TRF herd. He's 32 years old.
That is so cool. You had told me that, and that's just great. I mean, he's a little before your time, I think, here, but boy, you would have loved him.
And the TRF will be out at this meet all summer long. They are located, when they are out, at the community outreach booth over by the Jockey Silks room. So do yourself a favor, make a donation as we head out to, we'll stay here at Saratoga Racecourse, and we'll pick up the action with Saturday's third race, maiden special weight. These are the 2-year-old colts.
I was impressed by Economic Model. Breaks on top with the rod, a first-time star for Chad Brown, and very comfortably eases off the lead and rates it here. It's a very professional debut.
It really was. I mean, he, like you said, he broke running. Most of the time, you'd kind of, rush a 2-year-old to keep that position. It's like they knew that he had this ability. He just settled in, took the kick back, eased out. I love this gallop out, too. I watched him on the gallop out. He's got a pedigree that says he'll go longer, and I don't think he actually really hit his best stride till inside the 16th pole. This is a horse we got to keep an eye on.
No, I agree, and there's no reason to believe he can't be running in the hopeful going further. He got an 80 buyer in this race, a first star for Chad Brown, who has had more success over time with his turf first-time stars up here, but he's got a good one.
I like seeing a 2-year-old going 3/4 first out here in early August by Flatter out of a Quiet American Dam. Good effort. We'll see you in the hopeful. We'll see this next horse, a colt by Uncle Mo named Nyquist, in the Del Mar Futurity Labor Day weekend as Nyquist at even money scored for the white-hot freshman stallion, Uncle Mo.
Listen, he got a very good trip, but he was an hour and a half the best here for Doug O'Neill.
This is a good horse, and the Uncle Mo's are running. He might be the next great sire. And the thing that impresses me, not obviously that they're winning, he stamps them. They run like him. They put their head down and they attack the ground. You really got to be impressed with what you're seeing from him.
No, you pointed out yesterday, Jason. I think he was 6 for 19, you said.
Yeah, 6 for 19. He's had 19 runners. Now, I believe he covered more mares than any other freshman stallion, so you do have the odds in your favor, but there's no doubt about it. He's been very precocious and prolific as a stallion off the bat, and Doug O'Neill, J. Paul Redham have a good one here. And Nyquist, and we even saw the Uncle Mo 2-year-old win on the turf here Sunday for Todd Pletcher.
No, I agree, and he's going to have a lot of foals, but 6 for 19 is 6 for 19. It's a small sample, but it's a heck of a start.
All right.
It really is.
All right, and a former Wood winner in Bellamy Road has got a good one in Constellation, who sold for $800,000 at OBS March. She was bet off the board, and she ran like a good thing here midway through Sunday's card.
You pay $800,000 a 2-year-old sale for a Bellamy Road, they better be able to run it. I'll tell you what, Richie, this one delivered.
Really delivered. Very impressive. And it's funny, I said the same thing yesterday. $800,000 for Bellamy Road. Obviously, her breeze was good and fast, but she had to be a looker, and $800,000 is looking like it's okay right now.
I feel like Joe Tash, who ran second, ran a winning race.
Right.
This horse just blew her off the racetrack in the stretch.
You might be looking at one of the favorites for the Spinaway Labor Day weekend at Saratoga. We hope that's far off in the future. On this show next week, we'll have the Arlington Million, all the trimmings from the undercard as well, from Chicago, the 4-Star Dave, the Toyota Saratoga Special, and a lot more from Saratoga Racecourse. We're back at it Wednesday, first race post, 1 p.m. Thanks to the boys, the Mig and Andy. Always a good time, and thank you for joining us. Have a great night.